Welcome to this episode of AI Watch. Today, I have with me Bjørn Olesen. He's a sales director here at 2021 AI. And in the past 4 years, you have done more than 1,100 meetings with potential clients and existing clients of ours, and with about 300 of those being in the last 12 months.
Yes.
That's impressive. You've been busy.
Yes.
So I'm thinking, who knows anything about what's happening with companies right now in their AI projects? You do. What we want to talk about today is what are companies experiencing right now?
Yes.
Why are their AI projects, even though they're so motivated to do something with AI, why are they being stalled or why are they being blocked? You have some really interesting insights on that.
Yep.
And then also we can talk a little bit about this shift that's been the last 4 years, because there's definitely things that happen, some interesting things that also impact what our clients are asking for right now and what is challenging them, both in terms of their AI literacy, their expectations around the projects, and maybe also about the push from the business, from their board, from the CEO, to get some AI projects out there living. So first of all, Bjørn, so in broad lines, what are you seeing right now with the clients that you're meeting with? Why are they having problems getting their desired AI projects done?
So I would say I see a lot in when facing clients, also meeting clients that are in their projects, is that it's very easy for them to build a pilot. I mean, we could almost set up some kind of GPT within this meeting that could act like me and so on. So pilots are easy, but moving this into production, scaling it, that's so I think that's biggest challenge out there. The most generic challenge right now is that pilots are so easy, and then taking those initial very good results and actually scaling them and moving into production. That's the challenge out there right now, the main challenge. One of the blockers for moving into production is typically the lack of governance. So governance is a very wide term, but in the LLM and AI world, governance is, in my opinion, actually understanding what is the AI doing, because other parts of the business needs to understand what is this AI doing. And there, what I'm experiencing is a gap between legal risk compliance and the people developing the LLMs, because those two groups of people need to talk, and they don't understand each other very well. So explaining, the foundation of this LLM model, which your project is built on, and what regulations it complies with, and these kind of things, is very hard for a developer or a data scientist. On the other hand, for legal risk compliance, understanding the technology is not their background either. They understand law, they understand risk. So the projects, the pilots are easy, production is hard. The legislation, regulation, compliance is a blocker, and the problem there is the gap between those two groups. Yeah. That's the main thing I see out there.
So there's this report from Deloitte also supporting what you're saying right now, that and we'll show it here on the screen right now, but that a large majority of organizations have deployed less than a third of their Gen AI experiments into production, and this is exactly what you're also saying now.
Yeah.
You have all of these pilots, but they're not getting into production. And then what you're claiming is that that's oftentimes because you haven't prioritized the governance processes around it.
Yes.
That's also supported in this report by Deloitte, saying exactly basically what you're saying, that in fact 3 of the top 4 things holding organizations back from developing and deploying generative AI tools and applications are risk, regulation, such as the EU AI Act, and governance issues. But then the governance talk is interesting, I think, because few people come to us, or I think the larger organizations start to, you'll tell us in a minute. But we still have this. The request is to get some AI projects done, right? To show that you're doing something with AI, and then they're thinking when we got that, then we can talk about governance. What am I right here?
Yeah, completely.
And what's the problem with that?
First of all, it can be very difficult backtracking AI projects. So standing with a product and then somebody has to explain how, what was the original data set? How did this come to life? What checks were done? How do we make sure there was no bias? How do we make sure it's fair? Backtracking all of that can be a big task. We all remember when the GDPR regulation came. So backtracking on old legacy system, what data did we have stored, all of these things was just a very complicated situation, took a lot of time. And it's the same with AI. If you're standing at a point where you're basically ready to move into production, but now you have to backtrack to get your governance in order, that's a difficult place to be. It's much easier to have your controls and your governance in place while building, so that what you need to comply with at the end is something that you check continuously, that's also the way you're going. That makes productionizing your AI project much easier. So, but you're completely right. Right now, it's the very large organization has focused on this because they know the EU AI Act is coming. There's regulations coming all over the world. So we need to have kind of a structure in place.
If you're in a client meeting, and they want an AI project done, they haven't really heard about governance before. Is this something? Now we're just being completely honest. If you are then mentioning the importance of including governance from the get-go, and is this something that might scare them off, thinking that, oh, now my project is just getting more expensive, gated, I can't handle this?
The short answer is yes. What I'm seeing is not that people or companies are proactive. They are reactive in this. So that is also why they can't move these things into production, because they realize late in the game, oh, this isn't governed correctly. Or we are not willing to take the risk because no governance has been done. So it's not something where companies are proactive. And said in another way, that also means it's hard to sell because people aren't proactively built. When we do projects, we basically do the governance underneath. And then when clients start to realize this is important, we'll show them that this was done. But selling on it is much more difficult.
Yeah, I think this is so interesting. I really do. There's a report by Gartner stating this as well, saying that by 2027, 60% of organizations will fail to realize the anticipated value of their AI use cases due to incohesive ethical governance frameworks. And that's exactly what you're pointing at there. So that also means that you can have a bunch of really good ideas for using AI, and you're just getting it in production now, but long term you won't have success with it because you didn't build in that governance. So how excited, now not trying to be too salesy, but how excited are then our clients when you tell them, don't worry, we did consider governance when building this for you?
They don't realize yet that this is going to be a problem, and therefore they're not excited about a solution to a problem they don't know exists yet.
Yeah.
So it is something you need to, from a sales perspective, tread carefully on, because it's not their main focus. Their main focus is the use case. It's something that will come along the journey towards the use case. It's good to be prepared. It's good to have those things, but it's not. People are focused on having AI use cases, typically because their board would like it, or their owners. So they would like to have AI use cases, and that's the main focus.
Okay, so we're talking about these challenges that companies experience with legal right now. That legal are saying no. Of course, with good hearts, they're protecting the company as they should. But do you think that this tendency where projects are showcased to legal and then they get a no, have this tendency grown over the last few years? Is that an increasing?
Yes, because, you can say before ChatGPT, we were all running, but companies running AI were running machine learning projects. And there you had a very structured data set that you brought in on your own. So you kind of knew what the model was built on. It also had a very clear output. What was this intended to be used for? So churn detection, credit scoring, whatever. Now we're in the LLM space where somebody else built the AIs, trained on the internet and data you don't, they would even have a hard time explaining what data went into each answer of the model. So we're building on top of something that somebody else brought in, and the use cases are not a single output. It's, here's this great LLM tool for all workers. You can use it to write posts, generate images, do meeting notes, all these things. So the use cases are in the thousands. So that also means the risk is much higher. And also, if we want to client face it, AI has also been something that was inside the business. Now we want to have AI-enabled chatbots and these kind of things. So now we are also presenting it in front of clients. So there's more that's being blocked, but there's also way more use cases, and there's way more money being poured into it. And now it's not only a data scientist that's building AI solutions. It's normal IT. It's you and I who sit and build up racks and these kind of things on our LLMs. So it's coming from all sides. And the next iterations of the LLMs are capable of going deeper into the business. So they will handle client data. They will handle all sorts of data, HR, payroll data. So they're going deeper. It's more. And the easiest, fastest, safest way is just to say no.
What do you see is the biggest difference from the meetings that you had 3 years ago and the meetings that you're having today? What has happened in the AI space over the last years that have made a big difference?
So I mentioned this before and after ChatGPT, and there's a big difference there. So it's kind of like the iPhone moment where before the iPhone, all telephones had buttons, or we had a stylus pen and these things, and then this came along and everything else seemed old-fashioned. In the AI world, before ChatGPT, the meetings were a lot about learning companies or teaching them this is what AI can do, to then talk about what kind of projects could be interesting for them. Now everybody kind of knows what AI can do because it's been very easy for any user to update their resume or these kind of things with the power of AI. So now the meetings are much more about how do we scale this, how do we move this in front of clients, and then the governance is starting to move back in there, things that were very hard to talk about before ChatGPT. So it's also moved from one kind of stakeholder in the company or that had this idea or were passionate about technology to there's a big push from the entire business and from the owners or the board of directors to get more AI in there because it brings value to the companies. The companies that do implement AI perform much better than non-AI companies. So it's moved a lot.
On a final note, because the time is up, just very, very briefly, what do you think companies should do now to succeed with AI?
I think they should start working on a governance framework so that they can bridge legal and data science or legal risk. Because if they don't start doing this now, they'll get lots of no's at the end saying you can't move this into production, or they will only succeed with lightweight AI cases like Copilot and so on.
Yeah.
So start building this foundation. The money spent there is a lot of money saved in the end. Think about GDPR and how we went through that. It's the same with AI. Get your governance in place now and bridge these two areas. Then you'll have success on moving heavier AI cases into production.
Great. Thank you, Bjørn. And thank you for listening to this episode of AI Watch. If you want to have an email from us every time we have a new episode, you can subscribe here on the page. Thank you.